Happy Earth Day, everyone. It's just gorgeous out. Great day to slow down, appreciate our Earth. This is a permaculture designed food forest, meaning that the food forest, this perimeter and the bottom of the annual garden here, is planted to mimic the forest. What I mean by that, it was planted in guilds. Those guilds use plants, animals, and fungi to meet the needs of the whole, just like the forest does. No one plants things in the forest or transplants or waters or mulches or fertilizes, and every year that forest turns green from the bottom to the top. So in our yard we've done that, mimicking that, but using as many plants as we can that grow food for us and work for us and the animals. So I might just go over and look at one of these guilds here and explain what we're seeing there. This is a traditional annual garden here. We grow green onions, carrots, lettuces, cucumbers, peas, arugulas, spinaches, different greens that we'll eat, things we'll eat every day as we're walking through here to let the chickens and the ducks out and to put them back up at night. Strawberries, harvesting things through here. Below this is a long-term annual garden. If you've seen my videos before, I've talked about it quite a bit. But down there is things we don't need to pay much attention to. Corn, beans, squash, garlic, potatoes, stuff like that we could plant. We go look for bugs once in a while that might be bothering it, squish those for any diseases, things like that. But in general, we just harvest it when it's done. We don't have to do much in the meantime. Mixed in with that is some of the perennial foods. So we have perennial ground covers and edible flowers that we have in there. Stuff like lovage and sorrel and sochan. This shows up bigger and better every year. And there's others that we eat, asparagus. So that's down in there too, towards the bottom. The whole perimeter, as I said, is planted in guilds. We'll go look at one of those, kind of the largest one, mostly on that side, explain some of the plants in it and what their functions are. In this area as well as the swales, I made videos on those, coming off the road into the front yard. Throughout the whole property is a series of 15 swales that each fills up, holds that water, then overflows into the one below it, working its way down to the pond in the bottom. There's 5 or 6 ponds that aren't lined. They fill up, hold water for a few hours to a day, and absorb that water into the soil below them. There's 3 lined ponds. Those are catching that duck waste, duck poop, allowing us to use that as a fertilizer in the garden beds and the fruit trees. Behind these swales is what's called hugelkultur. These are hugel mounds. We had a couple of large trees in the yard here. A dead oak tree over here, a dying pine tree that was in the way over here. So we had those and a few small trees dropped. I'll keep it short and simple, but we use the radial lumber, the smaller lumber, because the nitrogen to carbon ratio in that radial lumber is much closer to a compost pile there, so you can pretty much just bury it and it breaks down without stealing nitrogen from the soil around it. So we filled that up with the organic matter, wood chips, straw bedding from the ducks and chickens, garden debris, compost, leaves. It's turned into a beautiful soil over the years. We planted heavy nitrogen fixers to fix nitrogen in it. I think that's all I'm going to say for now. And we'll go down, we'll have a look around, and I'll explain a few things. I was just shooting from the deck there, and me standing down here in the annual garden. And this is a place we're going to walk through twice a day. This is an aquaponic greenhouse. We store the ducks and chickens in there. That catches their heat in there, multiple purposes, multiple uses that way. We do our plant starts, use the fish to grow food year round, store the ducks and chickens in there. This is an old hot tub. That grows water lettuces and water lilies and whatnot. We put those in the ponds and other places in the property. The ducks and chickens won't eat them in here, they eat them out there. It creates food for them. So this is a nursery for those. This here is an herb spiral. It was an herb spiral. It kind of crumbled a little bit over the years. With just your basic herbs, we've got rosemary, marjoram, a few kinds of basil, cilantro, a curry plant, oregano, thyme, lemon balm, sage, rosemary, some onions, green onions, perennial leeks. I see some sorrel out there with little yellow flowers. Then over here, it's just the peas, just planted some tomatoes, cilantro, and different greens. Has some bee balm, some flowers. Climbing the strawberries at the bottom there. Climbing up the deck is a hardy kiwi. It's a perennial. I'm not gonna name any more annuals, just your standard annual gardens with some strawberries down front. Hey, frickin' frack, what are you doing? Come here. So these are the swales. I've got them planted because they only catch water when it rains every now and again, and they just hold it for a minute and let it go. That fills what's called the water lens below this whole property. They say it takes about 7 years. But because these property are wide swales and ponds, fill up every rainstorm, overflow into the next one below and on down through, absorbing that water into the mountains behind them and down below, away from the sunlight, where it's not evaporating. After about 7 years, it starts giving the water back at the bottom. That's about where we are. If we stick a shovel in the bottom down there and dig too deep, it's not like a spring, but water definitely shows up. A little hoarse, excuse me. So short-term annuals, everyday foods. Lots of perennials mixed in, like strawberries, blueberries, jujubes, a few different pears, cornelian cherries, figs, hazelnuts, blackberries, raspberries, yellow raspberries, black raspberries, red raspberries. Most of that's around the perimeter. Potted mulberry. But generally we grow things like the garlic and potatoes and beans. I'll mention with that a lot of the beans that I've planted this year for dry beans or the runner and half runner pole beans. I use all these trees as trellises. There's a couple purposes. So that's fixing nitrogen at the base of that tree out of the air and from the soil around it. I've done videos and pictures of the nodules on Austrian winter peas. That's these here. In return, it's using that tree as a trellis, both producing food for us. It's covering the soil. Lucy, what do you got in your mouth? Hey, drop it. Drop it. That's why you're not allowed to come in here. So these trees and beans and peas are working together. The beans or peas are fixing nitrogen for the tree, and the tree is creating a trellis for the bean. I think we'll go over to the oldest guild here. That's this apple tree here. It's got 4 grafts on it. So it's 5 different types of apples now. That gives us an offset in the flowering times in case the first one gets taken by a frost. An offset of disease resistances. So disease susceptibility, if one apple is more susceptible to a certain type of disease that shows up, we may lose a couple branches or part of that tree, but the rest will still get fruit from that year. Same with the frost, early frost. But I think I'll go set the camera down over here so I can point out a few of the different things going on in there. So in this guild, this is south, it's facing north. The key species being this large apple tree. medium-sized apple trees. There's lilies down front, some Jerusalem artichokes mixed in, strawberries down below, mint ground covers, irises, lilies back here, some clover mixed in for a nitrogen fixing ground cover. The next tree over is a gummy berry. A gummy berry is a nitrogen fixer. So it's taking nitrogen out of the air and the soil around it, storing it, returning it to the plants around it. It also has a wonderful smelling flower on it, bringing in lots of beneficial insects and insects to pollinate the trees around it. The berry itself is a really good tasting berry. It's one of my favorite berries on the property, my favorite jelly anyways on the property. It's good tasting berry as well, but it's a really good jelly, a unique flavor. Stepping down next to that, but starting to overgrow that, is a fig tree, a brown turkey fig. Stepping down on the other side is a silverberry called a winterberry. It's another nitrogen fixer doing all the same things as the gummy berry. Did I call it a gummy berry the first time? So the gummy berry is my favorite jelly. Nitrogen fixing, bringing in the beneficials, producing that wonderful berry, creating organic matter, feeding the bees. I see bees going around on it right now. But it does it right about now, so starting in April. On the other side of that, past the fig, is that silverberry. The silverberry flowers in late November and December, fruiting in March and April now. I'm getting my last berries off of that. So with the clovers, the different sized bushes and trees for nitrogen fixers all around in these guilds, and the different sorts of flowers in here and fruits, there's something fruiting, flowering, almost year round to bring in those beneficial insects, to feed the bees, to mimic nature, as we're trying to do here. So year round, we've got something flowering here, or darn close to it, to feed the bees, to feed the insects, to act like the forest around us. Trying to mimic nature, permaculture. Designing it that way, designing to have these different blooms happening throughout the year. I think we'll step around, we'll walk around now and take a close-up at a few of these things. So now we're on the downside, the south side of this apple tree with all the grafts on it. Working our way down in both directions, all directions. There's a hazelnut here, the gummy, the fig, silverberry, another hazelnut, sochan, an edible perennial green. At this stage we can pick that, parboil it and eat that. It gets a beautiful sunflower as it gets taller. Some clover down front, a variety of cone flowers, echinacea and black-eyed Susans, and a variety of lilies and irises and succulents. This is a Ariona, Viking Ariona berry. That'll get a little bit bigger. Probably be 7-8 feet at tallest. There's a service berry in the back side, similar. So those are all working down, so we're going in 3 dimensions here, working our way out and coming down as we do it, but planted in guilds. There's horseradish in there, comfrey out here. So the comfrey is a dynamic accumulator, pulling lots of nutrients from down deep. The clovers, the gummy, the silverberry, young locusts I have growing out of here, black locusts that I'm cutting back, are fixing the nitrogen. The flowers are pulling in the beneficial insects. The berries, the flowers, and the fruits with all their flowers are calling in the beneficial insects and the pollinators. Together it's working as a whole, producing the needs for everyone, and we're getting the surplus. I just manage it. On this side is a gooseberry. This is another nitrogen fixture. This is more of the bush size. This is autumn olive. This is a Josta berry. More flowers are on the base of that. With a Nanking cherry, a grape, yellow raspberries, red raspberries, and on throughout, all in this small area. This will be one guild all working together. So that repeats itself. This is the largest one on the property. That repeats itself multiple times throughout, all working together. So we've got the swales and ponds catching the water, storing that energy, including the duck waste as a fertilizer. The hugel mound grow beds, creating that beautiful organic soil that gets more nutrient dense throughout the years. Partially because we have it planted with these nitrogen fixing bushes, ground covers, shrubs, and perennial edibles. So to recap, this is Fat Ninja Farm. It's a half-acre permaculture designed food forest. It's located on a half-acre in Asheville, North Carolina. Today is Earth Day, April 21st, 2020. We have a YouTube station and a Facebook account, PHAT. Please like, subscribe, and share these videos. Be kind to one another. Help one another with the changes ahead. Let's make it positive, not negative. Find the good things in these changes ahead. I believe this slowdown is helping many of us realize that. I've talked to so many neighbors, so many people stopping to get plants, seen so many people starting gardens, so many people stop to take starts. We've got a little station set up out front to get your own free starts. Just little baby plants I've got out there in Dixie cups. But so many people stopped. So maybe just one more pan to see the fruits, nuts, berries, annuals, perennials, plants, animals, and fungi, all working together to produce the needs of the whole. Well, happy Earth Day, everyone.